Hello, I'm back and I'm ready to finish chapter one. I'll have some closing thoughts and then we'll proceed into chapter two in the next recording. I hope you're having a great day and I hope that you're enjoying connecting with me in this way. So let me go ahead and proceed. So the next section is titled A Personal Decision. It says, forget about your religious background for a moment. We don't care whether you have or have not grown up in church, whether you have or have not believed in God before you picked up this book, or whether you have or have not confessed your faith to any particular religion. None of that matters. The question right now is whether God does matter to you today. Be honest with yourself. Do you genuinely believe God exists? If you do you believe he understands you and is there for you in the seemingly relentless life struggles and daily hassles that you face? Does he care about you, your relationships, your job, your health, your family? Does he make a difference in your life or in the way you behave? Does he have the capacity to? Or is God dead? Is he merely a wish-fulfilling extension of your own fantasy, not real, but important for the sense of safety and security that the God delusion gives a needy human? Is he just a culturally mocked up idea that has lost significance in the rise of industrialism and technological advance around the world? Is he merely a complex psychological crutch that you must escape from in order to know that exquisite existential angst of freedom and aloneness? As we were writing and discussing stories for this book, the comic Pogo came up in our conversation. The issue called We Have Met the Enemy and He Is Us. It's a fitting thought as we consider God's existence because it highlights the reality of each of our personal experiences and how these experiences can affect whether or not we believe in God and to what degree. Wrestling with the question of God is intensely personal, and none of us can escape it. You are who you are alone before God. Nothing more, nothing less. What you do with the question of God shapes and colors everything in and around you. Does God matter? We think this question is better answered with another question. Is the problem God, or is it our perception of God? You will find out the answer to these questions and more in the next few chapters. You're going to also discover what it means to live in a vibrant relationship with God by understanding why you believe, act, and feel the way you do in your relationship with God and in your relationship with others. Whether you know it or not, you have a relationship style that impacts how you do or don't do intimacy with those you love, and in particular with God. That's what the profound invitation of the Bible is all about, to be in a meaningful relationship with God. Unfortunately, most of us miss it, but you don't have to. So in the last bit of the chapter, there are these consideration points, and it says to consider this. Your life experiences have shaped what you believe about God and the way you act and feel in relationship to Him. Do you genuinely believe God exists and makes a difference in your everyday life, in your relationships, your job, your health, your family? Does He make a difference in the way you behave? Does He have the capacity to? Write down a few life experiences that have shaped how you view God and your answer to these questions. It even invites you to visit www.godattachmentbook.com to watch interactive videos that will help you further understand how your life experiences have influenced what you believe about God. It says they've created the videos after each chapter and posted them on this website to help you understand more deeply what it means to further cultivate a secure attachment to God. So in the beginning, I didn't want to necessarily give you the title of the book or even the author's names, just simply because I wanted to invite you into considering the context of this information. And I didn't want you, again, to judge a book by its cover. So obviously now we know that this subject matter has to do with God, but it also has to do with the psychology and the understanding, as well as the relational attachment styles that we grow up in. So, what these authors are going to do a good job of is explaining that when we are being raised and we're living in those formative years, the relationship styles that we develop by our caregivers and by those around us, our siblings, different relationship elements, they are going to motivate us how we have relationship as we get older. And so one of those relationships that you're going to encounter is a relationship with yourself and a relationship with God. And so they're simply beginning to ask us to consider the reality that maybe our biases and our perceptions aren't necessarily based on maybe just like truth, but it's based on how we interact in our relationship styles and our attachments. And for example, if we've been raised by caregivers that were supposed to keep us safe, and there was a less than nourishing experience with them, we like to use that definition when we're talking about trauma. Trauma can be anything that is really extreme, but it can also be anything that's less than nourishing. And so some individuals grew up in really volatile households, and there was all kinds of things going on, very much overt abuse and abandonment and neglect. But some individuals grew up in what we would call more of silent abusive homes or covert. So it's not so much that you were, punched or sexually abused. Maybe you had a roof over your head and you had food for your belly, but you didn't have that emotional attunement from your primary caregivers, especially your mom and your dad. And it's not to say that they're bad or we're blaming, it's more to understand what was the reality of what you grew up in, because that is really going to establish your perception from everything from your emotional, but also to your neurological expectations, if you will, from your body, your soul, and your spirit when it comes to relationships. Again, you have a relationship with yourself, you have a relationship with others, and you have a relationship with God, or you're invited to have a relationship with God. So this book is not necessarily going to just be found in the religious genre. It's a psychological book where you're beginning to understand more about how your orientation is and what do you want to do with that. And just, what I love about information is we get to collect this data. And then based on the data, we get to be more empowered to have choices. For me personally, I don't want my past experiences that I had no control over to dictate my present reality with my relationships. So if I was raised in an environment that was less than nourishing and I learned to be scared of my people that I'm supposed to be safe with, well, that can easily set me up to mistrust myself, others, and certainly God. And so for me, I had to, a long time ago, go through this self evaluation to try to understand what relationship really meant to me and what was the lens that I was looking at it through. And it gave me a chance to be introspective in regards to how I felt about God. For those of you who aren't aware, just growing up in a really bad childhood set me up to reject God and just totally not believe that He was powerful, that He even cared that I existed. And I'm thankful that at the age of 24, I was able to go through experiences where I came to find out that that's not true, that He very much does love me. And a lot of the things that I went through were not in vain. There were reasons, and part of it's that we live in a fallen world, but He also didn't waste that hurt and that suffering. And so I just want to encourage each of you to know that, and maybe again just be open-minded right now with what we're going through. It's a really important time to question what we believe and to do some evaluation and kind of get to the next step of, again, relationship with ourselves, with others, and again, invite you to have a relationship with God if that's what you choose. So I'm done with chapter 1, and what I'll do is I'll pick up in chapter 2, and I look forward to seeing you in just a little bit. Thank you so much.